At my boss's retirement party, I was told to run logistics. That's all you're good for, so don't screw it up. When I finally sat down, my boss looked at me and said, "You done? Good. Get the hell out of the way. I don't want to look at you while I'm eating." Everyone laughed. Devin added, "Yeah, don't ruin the view." I just said, "You'll regret this." 2 years later, they're begging me to come back. They say you remember your worst moments in slow motion. For me, it was a Tuesday in early spring. The air smelled like overbrewed coffee and expensive cologne. We were in conference room C, all gathered for Rick's retirement party. Rick, my boss of 8 years, the man I'd quietly kept afloat through countless crises he somehow managed to forget. My name is Marcus. I'm 37 years old, and I live in Columbus, Ohio. I'd been with the company for over a decade, ran logistics so smoothly people barely noticed I was there. That was the point. Or so I thought. The room was packed, laughter, cake, champagne, people I'd trained raising toasts like they'd known Rick personally. I was the one who ordered the food, booked the space, coordinated everyone's schedules. I should have been standing up there with him. Instead, I was the one refilling the drinks. About halfway through the event, I tried to take a seat near the back, my legs aching from being on them all morning. I grabbed a plate, poured some punch, and finally let out a breath. That's when Martin, my manager, tapped the microphone. "I think we can all agree," he said with a grin. "This party's been flawless. And that's all thanks to our own Marcus, resident coffee guy, logistics ninja, and the man who always knows where the creamer is." The room laughed. I chuckled politely, biting into a too-dry cracker. I wasn't going to let it get to me. Not today. Devin, my favorite office mosquito in khakis, turned from his seat near the front and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't ruin the photos, Marcus." More laughter. I looked around and even Jessica, the intern I'd helped prep for her final presentation last week, was giggling behind her hand. Martin smirked again. "Don't start your sulking again, Marcus," he said into the mic. "We don't want another printer meltdown moment." The room broke into full-on cackling. I felt something click in my brain, like a window being closed from the inside. The noise around me faded, voices dulling into a low hum. I stood up slowly, brushed imaginary crumbs off my slacks, and locked eyes with Martin. "You'll regret this," I said, not loud, not threatening. Just flat, like someone stating a weather forecast. He blinked, confused. Devin's grin twitched, not quite as cocky now. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of the conference room without another word, the laughter dying behind me like a candle being snuffed. No one followed. No one stopped me. And that was the moment everything began to change. It had been 2 years since the roast. Since I walked out of that conference room and into a different version of myself. No dramatic emails, no scorched earth resignation letter. I just stopped showing up for anything beyond what was contractually required. Meetings? Skipped. Socials? Ignored. And when HR tried to schedule a check-in, I rescheduled it into oblivion. No one really noticed. Or maybe they did, and liked it better that way. I kept my distance. And they kept doing what they always did, laughing without me. I had them all muted on socials. I didn't want to see the work fam selfies or the Friday pizza parties they pretended were spontaneous but always pre-planned. But sometimes LinkedIn doesn't care about boundaries. That's how I found out Devin had bought a condo. A sleek little box of white walls and Edison bulbs in German Village. Home sweet investment, the caption said. He was standing outside with a wine glass like he'd just been featured in a lifestyle blog. Comments flooded in. "Congratulations. Jealous. Invite us for wine night." I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. But I clicked on it. And that was enough. A couple of days later, I was scrolling through Instagram. Yes, I still had a burner, and there it was. Devin's housewarming. Everyone was there. The whole team. Even Rick, the retiree, was posing in front of a neon sign that said, "Good vibes only." Devin had set up a stupid little photo corner with props, $ glasses, a mini whiteboard that said, "Still a boss." And there, in the group shot, was Martin with a beer in one hand and his other arm around Jessica. I wasn't invited. Not even a casual text. Not even a, "Hey, this thing is happening if you're around." I waited a couple hours. Then texted Devin. Me, "Congrats on the new place. Missed the invite?" No response. I tried Martin next. Me, "Didn't realize the team was gathering this week." 5 minutes later, he replied. "Martin, it was just a small thing. Close friends, you know?" That word again. Close friends. I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the chat. That night, I drove by. Just to see. I parked across the street, engine off, headlights dimmed. Through the wide condo windows, I could see them all, laughing, clinking glasses, taking turns at karaoke like they were 16 drinks into a college reunion. I sat there for 15 minutes. I wasn't even mad at first. Just stunned. Like finding out a club you helped build had quietly changed the locks. I waited until Devin stepped outside to take a call. Then I dialed. He answered on the second ring. Hello? It's Marcus. Silence. Oh. Thought that number looked familiar, he said. I could hear the smirk even without seeing it. You spying from across the street or something? I didn't answer. You missed your shot, man, he said, a little drunk now. You ghosted. People moved on. That's how it works. He hung up. I stared at my phone, the screen still glowing in my hand. For a moment, I almost pitied them. Still thinking I was out of the game. Still thinking I hadn't been paying attention. They thought I disappeared, but I'd only been preparing, watching, learning exactly how to make them feel what I felt. And tonight just confirmed it. They never planned to let me back in. So now? Now I'd make sure they remembered what it felt like when I left. I didn't plan on confronting Devin that night. I told myself I was just driving by. But when he hung up on me with that smug little chuckle, something inside me shifted. I turned the ignition off, got out, and walked across the street like I had every right to be there, because for years, I had been the one who held that team together. He was leaning against the porch rail, scrolling through his phone with a beer in hand. He didn't look up when I approached. Still think I'm watching from the street? I asked. He flinched slightly, then grinned without looking at me. Yes, you were. I didn't smile. You didn't have to be a jerk on the phone. He shrugged. You walked out, Marcus. 2 years of silence. No replies. No check-ins. People moved on. Don't get all wounded now. Funny, I said. You say I walked out like it wasn't you all standing there laughing when Martin called me the coffee guy. Like you didn't join in. He finally turned to face me, still wearing the practice smirk. You're still hung up on that? Jesus, man. It was a joke. I stepped closer. Not to me. That got to him. His smirk faltered just enough to show the crack beneath. Then he squared up, shoulders back. You need to leave, he said. Seriously. You're making a scene. No, I said calmly. You already did that. 2 years ago. Then, in the quiet between us, he did something I didn't expect. He stepped forward and shoved me. Not hard, just enough to let me know he thought he could. Don't come back here, he said low, almost whispering. You're not part of this anymore. You were never really part of it. I stared at him, unblinking. Then I turned around and walked back to my car. When I got home, my phone buzzed. Group text. The old work thread. Devin. Marcus showed up at the party. Creeper vibes, LOL. Jessica. OMG, seriously? Martin. I told you he'd pull something eventually. Screenshot. 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 No apologies. No shame. Just mockery. Again. But this time, I didn't stew. I didn't write a long response. I didn't try to explain myself. I just started making a list. Not of names. Not of grudges. Of systems. Logins. Processes. All the things I used to do for them without being asked. All the things that just worked because I made sure they did. They thought cutting me out meant cutting off a person. What they didn't realize was that I had been the infrastructure, and I was about to let them feel every missing piece. I didn't quit. I didn't write a scathing email. I didn't even change my job title on LinkedIn. I just stopped. No more jumping into fixed calendar overlaps when someone double-booked the exec meeting and the product demo. No more weekend texts answered. No more emergency Slack responses at 11 p.m. when the dashboard crashed. For the first time in 12 years, I let things break. It started small. A printer jammed on the 3rd floor. I saw the alert come through the group Slack channel. Anyone know how to clear this? Silence. Then Jessica chimed in with, Marcus usually takes care of it. No mention. Just a casual reminder of how often they relied on me without realizing it. I read it. Then went back to my coffee. Next came the shared drive. Monday morning, the team logged in to prep for Devin's client pitch, only to find that all folders were showing access denied. That's because I was the one who maintained the permissions, quietly patching them every time someone forgot their password or added the wrong user. No one had ever thought to ask who managed that. They just assumed it handled itself. By noon, Martin pinged me directly. Martin, hey, drive's acting up. Can you take a look? I didn't reply. A couple hours later. Martin, Marcus? Just need access fixed. Pretty urgent. Still nothing. Then, a calendar glitch hit. The recurring Zoom link for our weekly client calls was missing. Devin scrambled to find a backup, while 3 other team members flooded the Slack thread with, I thought Marcus set these up? Yup, I did. And now, I didn't. The thing about people like them is, they think the world works on autopilot. They think structure is just background noise. They forget someone built it, maintained it, sweated over it. Until it's gone. Then they panic. Over the next few days, the frequency picked up. Slack pings. Emails. Calendar invites that never got answered. I let it pile up. Jessica tried to call me Thursday night twice. Left a voicemail. Hey Marcus, quick question about the resource database. I think something's missing. If you could just... I didn't listen to the rest. By Friday, Martin was CCing HR. Martin, Marcus has been unresponsive to multiple urgent requests related to internal operations. HR followed up. HR, Hi Marcus, please advise if you're experiencing any technical difficulties. Let us know how we can support. I responded with one line. Me, not experiencing any difficulties. Just sticking to the scope of my job description. No response. I could feel it starting. The subtle unraveling. The cracks widening in the walls they thought were solid. And I was just getting started. They'd spent years calling me the coffee guy, the behind-the-scenes fixer, the guy who was just there. Now I was showing them what things looked like without me there at all. No tantrums. No warnings. Just quiet, methodical absence. And that was scarier than any storm. It took less than 2 weeks for the cracks to become craters. Devin's big moment was supposed to be a launch party for the team's newest client. A sleek beverage startup with venture capital behind it and a founder who wore leather sneakers and used synergy unironically. Devin had been bragging for months about how landing them was going to put him in the fast lane to regional VP. He sent the invite out himself, booked the venue, made a whole LinkedIn post about it, black and white headshot, buzzwords galore. But here's what he didn't do: confirm the sound system, back up the presentation files, check the print orders, or coordinate catering delivery windows. Because, well, you never had to. That had always been me. Friday morning, the event kicked off at 10 a.m. sharp, or, at least, that was the plan. By 10:15, the portable PA system was still dead. No power, no backups. Devin tapped the mic 3 times and got silence. He tried yelling over the crowd, which just made him look like a camp counselor with a broken whistle. At 10:30, the first catering tray showed up, salads. Just salads. No drinks, no cutlery, no entrees. People stood around holding empty plates, unsure what to do. Some tried to be polite. Others, mostly the client team, whispered to each other with raised eyebrows. At 11:05, Jessica finally texted me. Jessica, hey, quick question. Did you ever get that backup USB with the pitch deck? The one with the animations? I stared at the message, thought about it for a second, then replied. Me, not my department anymore. 10 minutes later, a new message popped up, this time from Martin. Marcus, we're in a bind. If you can jump on a quick call to troubleshoot some of this, we'd really appreciate it. I didn't reply. I screenshotted it instead. For the file. Word got around. By lunch, the client's lead strategist had already sent a polite but cold email to Martin, asking if future events could be more tightly coordinated. Translation: get your house in order. That afternoon, Devin posted a photo from the event on LinkedIn anyway. Carefully cropped. No sound system in sight. No crowd. Just him in front of a blank projector screen, smiling like everything had gone exactly to plan. But I saw the comments. Looks like a rough setup. What happened? Did the presentation not go through? Yikes. Hope next time runs smoother. His little PR bubble was leaking fast. And through all of it, I stayed quiet. No gloating. No poking the bear. Just silence. But I knew something had shifted. They were no longer laughing about the coffee guy. They were scrambling, trying to understand why things suddenly felt so hard, so disjointed, so broken. I wasn't sabotaging them. Not yet. I had simply stopped protecting them from themselves. And for the first time, they were seeing what that cost. Cutting them off had been easy, quiet, clean. But watching them struggle wasn't enough. Not anymore. They didn't just laugh me out of that room 2 years ago. They made a spectacle out of it. They stripped me of dignity in front of interns and VPs, then acted like I was being sensitive. Now they were fumbling through their own mess, and still, no one had said sorry. Not Martin. Not Devin. Not a single person. So I escalated. The first move was subtle. I logged into the cloud backup system, one I had set up under my personal credentials back in 2019, when no one else knew how to configure tiered access levels. It had run seamlessly for years, automatically duplicating files every 24 hours and archiving previous versions. One click. Unsubscribed. The sync stopped the next day. Quietly, invisibly. No alert. No red flashing icon. Just, no more backup. They wouldn't realize it until they lost something. Next came the website. I had originally bought the domain for them during a crisis week, when their old vendor flaked and the marketing team needed the site up before a trade show. Guess whose personal account it was still tied to? I went in. Canceled the automatic renewal. Domain expiration notice. Issued. The next one was almost too satisfying. I had built a scheduling integration using my own API key. Just a patchwork fix at the time, something to bridge their calendar app and project tracker after a failed vendor pilot. No one else ever touched it after I deployed it. That morning, I revoked the key. By lunchtime, meetings stopped syncing. Tasks vanished. Devin probably thought it was a glitch. But it wasn't a glitch. It was extraction. I wasn't just stepping away anymore. I was taking back everything that had been mine. And then I added a cherry on top. I submitted an anonymous tip to facilities. It was simple, no dramatic claims, no exaggerations. Just a short, detailed report about Devin's office, improper cable management, blocked exit access, overloaded surge protectors under his desk. All true. All things I used to quietly fix every time he reorganized his space and forgot about fire codes. Within 3 days, the inspection happened. Within a week, the company got cited. Minor fines. But they still had to submit documentation, fix the violations, and, most importantly, name the employee responsible. Devin. When the notice went up in the break room, he looked like someone had shoved a lemon in his mouth. I wasn't there to see it, but a friend in facilities texted me a photo of the report on the bulletin board, the supervisor responsible line glaring in bold. I read it while drinking tea on my porch. Alone. Calm. Satisfied. Let them feel it. Let them flail. Let them try to rebuild a system they never understood. This wasn't revenge. This was recovery. They thought the infrastructure ran itself. That the logistics, the access, the safety, the flow, it all just happened. They never realized it had always been me, walking around with a metaphorical toolbox, quietly fixing things they never thanked me for. Until now. Now they were starting to notice. And soon, they'd beg. The company's energy shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not at first. Just a slow, unraveling tension that crept through Slack threads and staff meetings like a cold draft no one could locate. Deadlines started slipping. Project leads were scrambling. People were whispering in break rooms again. Then came the emails. HR was first. Subject, quick check-in. Hi, Marcus. Hope you're well. We were wondering if you might be open to consulting on a limited basis. We'd really value your insight on a few internal systems. Soft language. Careful tone. Like I was a stray kid they wanted to coax back inside with a saucer of milk. I didn't reply. A few days later, another email. Subject, opportunity to reconnect. Hi, Marcus. We'd love to schedule a brief call to discuss ways we can collaborate moving forward. No pressure, just looking to talk. Let us know what works for you. I forwarded it to a folder called Regrets and moved on. But the real tipping point came from inside the crumbling core. Devin, the golden boy, the office's loudest voice. The man who once shoved me on his porch like a high school bully was now getting slapped with fines and reprimands. I knew through the grapevine that the facility's citation had landed him on the radar of senior leadership. He'd been called into 2 separate performance discussions. Word got around. Then, one of the junior analysts, Laura, maybe 23, newish, DM'd me on Instagram. Laura, I don't know what you did, but I think you broke them. Laura, I mean that as a compliment. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Me, I didn't break them. Me, I just stopped fixing them. She replied with a laughing emoji and a respect. That was the first time in months I'd smiled at something related to that place. Then, the desperate pivot arrived. Martin, my old supervisor, the man who once called me just the coffee guy, emailed me himself. Subject, no agenda, just a conversation. Hi, Marcus. I know things didn't end well between us, but I'd really appreciate the chance to talk. No pressure. Not work-related. Just to talk. Let me know if you're willing. Martin. There it was. The first real crack in the wall. Not a demand. Not a, where have you been? Just a hand extended through the smoke. But I didn't take it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. I was done. They had built an entire culture that only worked because I silently made it work. They leaned on me, used me, and when I walked away, they laughed. Now they were crawling toward the edge of a cliff they didn't realize they'd already stepped off. And I was standing at the bottom, watching the dust settle. Not out of revenge. Just to witness the collapse. Because some lessons only sink in when the foundation finally gives out. They could tolerate chaos. They could spin a failed launch party. They could reshuffle deadlines, whisper apologies to clients, pretend HR hadn't started quietly reviewing team dynamics. But there was one thing they couldn't survive. Bad press. The company was obsessed with its image. Every quarterly meeting opened with slide decks about branding, reputation, and client-facing synergy. Devin once called himself a public-facing asset, like he was trying to get cast on a reality show. Martin still wore his name badge to lunch like it was armor. So I hit them where it would hurt the most. Anonymously, of course. I knew exactly which blog to target, an industry trade site that thrived on anonymous tips and juicy exposés. I'd followed them for years. They loved a behind-the-curtain piece, especially one involving internal dysfunction masked by flashy PR. My email was short. Just facts. No drama. Subject, tip, internal breakdown at company name. Hi. You might want to look into recent events at company name. Quiet resignations, failed client launches, loss of system integrity. Their internal processes have been a mess for months. Happy to share more if you're interested. A former insider. They replied within the hour. What followed was a brief back and forth, where I handed over just enough verifiable chaos, canceled events, missed deliverables, even a screenshot of Devin's sad little LinkedIn post with the comment section roasting him. 2 weeks later, it dropped. Behind the brand. Dysfunction inside company name, S shiny exterior. The article didn't name names. It didn't need to. Anyone in the industry could piece together the clues. It painted a picture of a company that had leaned too heavily on invisible labor, that had let key infrastructure crumble, that had lost good people and was now facing internal investigations and client backlash. The piece blew up. I watched the reactions unfold in real time. My LinkedIn notifications lit up with former colleagues liking the article, commenting, sharing, some with vague captions like "Phew, been there," or "When leadership fails to lead." Even Devin went quiet. No clever replies. No damage control posts. That afternoon, Martin's email pinged again. Subject, "Can we talk today? Really need your insight. Please." I didn't respond. The next day, a different department head, someone I barely knew, emailed me with a subject line that just read, "Help us, Marcus." It was like watching a mask slip off a face that had always been too smug to crack. They weren't just dealing with internal failure anymore. They were bleeding reputation. Clients were calling. Contracts were being reevaluated. And all of it was traceable back to the moment I stopped keeping the gears turning. They thought silence was my revenge. They hadn't even seen the real blow coming. Now everyone else had. And the one thing they valued more than comfort, more than convenience, was crumbling beneath them. Perception. It took less than 72 hours after the article dropped for the scramble to start. First came the email from Martin. No subject line this time, just desperation in plain text. Martin. "Marcus. Please. Just tell us what you want. Tell us what it'll take to fix this. We're listening now. We really are." He even signed it, humbly, Martin. That was a man who once laughed at me in front of a room full of coworkers because I ordered decaf instead of bold roast. Now he was humble. Now he was listening. But it didn't stop there. My phone lit up with a call from a number I hadn't seen in a while. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. "Devin." I answered, just to hear it. "Marcus," he said, voice already cracking. "I'm sorry, man. I mean it. He broke off into a shaky breath. "This client budget, I screwed it up. The numbers are upside down, and I don't know what to do. They're threatening to walk, and Martin's throwing me under the bus. Please, you were always good with the back-end logic. Can you help me clean it up?" I said nothing. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear from his mouth. "I messed up. I get that now. I was a jerk. I'm sorry. I need help." It wasn't anger in his voice. It was panic. The kind that came from watching a career unravel in real time. I let the silence stretch, then hung up. That night, another email. This time from HR. Subject, "Consulting retainer opportunity." "Hi Marcus. We understand this is an unusual ask, but leadership has agreed to offer you a consulting role on your terms. Double pay. Fully remote. Project-based. No meetings unless requested. Please let us know what you'd need to make this work. You'd be an independent contributor with full flexibility. We're hoping to rebuild something better with your help. Sincerely, Elaine HR." I stared at it for a long time. Then I archived it. Because here's the truth. I wasn't waiting for them to break. I had already moved on. I was consulting elsewhere. Quietly. With a team that valued competence over charisma. A place where I didn't have to beg to be seen. They could offer money, titles, apologies. It didn't matter anymore. Because when you finally learn your worth, no amount of scrambling makes you forget who made you feel worthless in the first place. And I hadn't forgotten a thing. I never went back. Not for the rebuilding. Not for the fat consulting offer. Not even to gloat. I didn't need to. I had a front row seat to the implosion from exactly where I liked to be, out of sight. It started quietly. A public org chart update posted on their site. Devin's name wasn't on it. His role had been restructured. Martin, demoted to project support advisor. A title so vague it may as well have been office plant. Jessica left altogether. Someone said she started working at a competitor. Another said she cried on her last day when no one threw her a going-away lunch. Every few weeks, I checked the news out of habit. A new VP brought in to stabilize culture. HR launched a listening campaign. A blog post appeared titled, "When Great Companies Lose Their Way and How to Recover." The comments were brutal. I never spoke to any of them again. Sometimes, people from other teams would reach out on LinkedIn. "Heard what happened, Wild. You were always solid." Or, "Would love to pick your brain sometime." Polite, curious, careful. I never replied. I didn't need closure. I had something better, clarity. And one night, about a month after Martin's last email, I sat at my desk and opened a folder on my desktop titled Memory Vault. Inside were screenshots, emails, texts, Slack threads. One called me a ghost with a clipboard. Another, overly sensitive for a guy who just books rooms. I scrolled through them slowly, not bitterly, just as a reminder. Then I opened a blank Word doc, titled it Final Log. I typed each name, one by one. Devin, Martin, Jessica, a few others. And beneath each one, a short list. Moments, comments, lies, things that used to keep me up at night. I read the whole thing through once, then hit save. There was nothing left to do but close it. So I did. And before I shut my laptop, I typed one last line at the bottom of the page. You said I was nothing. Now you know what nothing looks like. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of coffee. No emotion, no fireworks, just stillness. Outside, the city was quiet. Streetlights humming. Somewhere, someone else was probably being called the coffee guy. Someone else was putting out fires no one would thank them for. But that wasn't my job anymore. I was done playing support for people who only saw me when things broke. They finally got a chance to see what happened without me, and they wouldn't forget it.